There's a couple kinds of masks we're going to do in this lesson. Later on, when we blend our flip simulation into our ocean, we're going to use a mask to say, don't have the ocean here, just have our flip sim here. But for now, we can do some other kinds of masking operations. So on the ocean spectrum, there is a mask tab. The mask uses a regular old noise pattern, like we've talked about so much. So if we click add noise, you can kind of make it out. You can see it's like a purling noise or a turbulence or an anti-alias noise. I'm not sure which one it is. If you opened it up, you could go find out. It doesn't matter. The point is, it's suppressing, because it says that here, where the noise is returning higher values, it's suppressing the ocean output there. Now, skipping ahead, why is that good? It's not just because we don't want any waves there. That would be weird. It's because we want to have a completely different setup of a ocean spectrum that's going to be the complement to this, meaning the opposite. So anywhere that this noise was suppressed, it's going to be, what's the opposite of suppressed? Contributed to by the other noise. So we're going to have very different settings. We're going to copy this in a moment. But first, let's set up how that will look. As it is, I mean, this isn't bad. It's perfectly fine, but I'm going to make this be larger. I want to stretch the noise in one direction, like this, because what this noise to me is going to be wind, or rather a lack of wind. So I want there to be these like longer, stretched out, windier things that's doing this, or having if not a dead zone, just smaller waves. I'm going to make this other spectrum be smaller, calmer waves. But the way the wind would be blowing would probably be in a streakier way, or at least I think so. That's about that. And then we just want to move it. Let's bring our boat back. I want the boat to maybe be sitting in maybe a slightly calmer area. So let's kind of move these things around. Like here we go. So this is about right. So it's kind of on the cusp between a calmer area and a wilder area. So we'll get to see the wilder area in front of our camera. The boat will be traveling through kind of maybe a changing, transitional area. Now the masks themselves will move too, as you can see. So again, that's nice. It's as if the wind is itself moving. It's blowing and is changing where on here is being affected. So that's pretty good. If we take our ocean spectrum itself, I'm going to not just copy and paste it. I'm going to go Actions, Create Reference Copy. That's it. A reference copy is a literal copy, except that it has bound every single parameter back to the original one, which is useful because I don't want to change every parameter on the new one. And if I do change parameters on this one later on, I want most of them to propagate to this, just not all of them. So let's take a look at this one for a minute. Obviously it looks the same for now. First thing we want to do is change this mask. So the mask, if we find a parameter we want to change, right click and hold on it, go to delete channels or Control Shift left mouse button, turn it on, blend with spectrum, also delete channels. I want to blend it with his buddy here. So by pointing to it, you don't need to calculate or figure out what the opposite noise pattern is. It will just do it. It'll just look at the other node and do like 1 minus that essentially for you. So now you can see they are in two opposing regions. Now it's still the same other parameters, so if we added these together, it's still going to look the way it did before. So let's actually change something about it. The main thing that we might change is the speed. Like I said, I want these to be areas of less wind. So I'm just going to literally have the wind here. So 1.5 should be fine. If it's less windy, it's probably less choppy. So I'm going to go to 0.6 here. And as I have also explained before with the resolution exponent, we don't need as much detail in these waves because it's just less going on here. So I'm going to go down to 8 for that. And that is probably good enough. I think that'll be interesting. So let's merge these together. The merge won't literally combine the volume definitions or anything. They'll just simply be two sets of them. We have a phase and frequency, and we'll have two masks. Houdini knows, it expects that they are together in order. Like, it knows that the first phase goes with the first frequency. It's not going to get confused that this phase goes with this frequency. So you don't have to worry about that. As long as they stay in the same order, you don't arbitrarily shuffle these things around, it'll be fine. So there you go. Now we can see both of these. Hopefully, fairly convincing. We merge them together. We gotta put a null here and say spectrum, because we're gonna need to access these later on. And now we need to have this be the thing that's actually cached. So let's do that. It doesn't matter what frame we're on when we cache it. Remember, this is just a general definition. Much like when we said like sine of x, you can evaluate sine of x at any frame. These definitions can be evaluated on any frame. They don't need a per frame cache. Later on, though, when we mask our fluid sim, we will. But even the masks themselves know that they change with a certain speed, etc., etc. I click reload geometry anyway, just as like a superstitious thing. Like, the materials when you render should just read the current version of the file on disk every time, but I find that sometimes it doesn't. So I'll say that up front. If you're ever finding that your renders, even when you're rendering it again here, in the interactive view in particular, and you've changed the spectrum but you don't see it changing, you might honestly need to close Houdini and open it again. I feel like something happens with these files sometimes. Anyway, here we are back in this, and let's render it and see what it looks like with our new spectrum. I just stopped my render. I just realized that we now have masks. So we need to actually split those out. So put a split after spectrum thing here and put spectra. So they'll go to our spectrum one here. And if you want to make sure that that's true, you can always just drop a null down or something and look at it and see there they are. And the other input should just be the masks. So copy and paste this, put that into the second input, or rather output, and this will be masks. Go to out, just make sure we want to keep all this stuff up to date. So go to masks here and have our masks internal render operator be pointed to here, and there you go. So save that. I'll save this one once more for good luck, and now we'll go render it. Oh, we're closer, but still actually have to put the masks on the material itself. So absolute references, same thing here where we copy it and then paste it here, like so. So once more with feeling. All right, now we got there. We went from this to this. So this is one of those things where, like, you don't even know that it doesn't look that good until you see what looks better. Like, if you were content with this, you could be like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, I can see the light, I can see the little waves. Like, yeah, I mean, that's what the ocean looks like. But then it's like, well, actually, what if I had it, if I want to see the light come out? Well, actually, what if I accentuated these things? And like, what if I actually varied up the surface of my ocean and things? And it's like, now it's like, oh, we get the light really reflecting off the calmer areas while still having the patches of waves here and there. So you can take this and you can check out any other frame you want and see what it looks like. Obviously, it'll look different on the other frames because the camera has moved and the ocean has evolved and so on and so forth. But so playing around with that, we're going to do one more thing that will affect slightly the look of the ocean, which is going to be the ocean foam, which will add a few little bit of speckling here and there, and then we'll actually be done. And you could even technically just render this whole pass out because we're not going to revisit it, except I guess to render it at a higher resolution later on. Let's see what this looks like. Yeah. Cool. All right, so let's move on to the ocean foam sim.